Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. Health chiefs apologize for a spate of mishaps at public hospitals. Officials rush to explain after a video of a distraught elderly hawker triggers outrage. And Cathay Pacific's annual loss widens, but Hong Kong's flag carrier sees a bright future. The hospital authority has apologized after confirming that slabs of concrete fell from a ceiling in Kwai Chung Hospital early this morning. The incident came to light after photos were shared on social media. Janice Low reports.
Photos circulating online showed pieces of concrete that had fallen from the ceiling in Kwai Chung Hospital. The hospital authority confirmed the incident this afternoon. Officials said at around 3:30 a.m., both the false ceiling and concrete fell in the pediatrics and adolescents psychiatric consultation room. The largest piece was 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. Some furniture and computer hardware were destroyed, but no one was injured. It was the second ceiling collapse in recent months. In November, a slab of concrete dropped onto a vacant bed in Castle Peak Hospital. But the public did not hear about it until the incident was revealed in a social media post last Sunday. Other recent mishaps in public hospitals included the collapse of a surgical light in United Christian Hospital and a ceiling hoist in Tuen Mun Hospital. All public hospitals have been ordered to check ceiling-mounted equipment and the building structure.
In relation to the recent incidents of Castle Peak Hospital, we also noticed there has been issues with the communications in terms of how the information was relayed from the hospital to the management as well as to the head office and from the hospital authority as a whole to communicate with the public.
A committee has been set up under veteran surveyor Wan Man Yi to recommend improvements. A report will be submitted within 3 months. Janice Low, HKIBC.
The authorities have been hit with a barrage of criticism following the seizure of a cart belonging to an elderly female hawker. But the department concerned says it was not targeting the roasted chestnut seller. Macy Mock reports.
This video, which went viral, has angered many people. It shows an elderly hawker surrounded by police officers near Cheung Sha Wan Station on Monday after her cart was confiscated. Roasted chestnut seller Chan Tak Shing, who's around 90, was distraught as she pleaded to know why she was being penalized when she had a hawker's license. A relative who did not have a license had looked after the cart while she went to the toilet. During her absence, the cart was confiscated by the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, the FEHD. The video triggered an outpouring of anger, with netizens accusing officers of being heartless and lacking compassion. Today, the FEHD defended itself. It said its officers had seen Chan at 6:45 p.m. near Cheung Sha Wan Station and told her to leave because the area was busy. An hour later, when the officers returned to check, they saw a 30-year-old man operating a cooked food stall. He was arrested and charged for selling cooked food without a license. The woman returned over 30 minutes later. The officers said the cart was seized as evidence. Lawmaker Doreen Kong visited Chan yesterday and learned that she has been a hawker since 1960. In a phone conversation today, the FEHD told Kong that people are not allowed to help licensed hawkers look after a stall, even temporarily.
Obviously, the helper helping Miss Chan, I think, did not know the rule. Okay, otherwise, they would not continue to sell the chestnut. The rules and regulations must be reasonable, taking into account that a hawker is also a human being, right?
Chan is one of the city's 300 licensed mobile hawkers. Macy Mock, HKIBC.
Cathay Pacific says its future is bright, although its loss widened to $6.5 billion last year. The group is also looking to cut costs, and one way is to offload the preference shares offered by the government during COVID. As Hong Kong fully reopens to the world, the city's flagship carrier is expected to take off again. And from Cathay Pacific's annual results, the signs are encouraging. But it may not seem like it at first glance. The airline reported a loss of $6.5 billion for 2022, widening from the $5.5 billion deficit the previous year. Most of the damage, however, came in the first few months, when Hong Kong was ravaged by the fifth COVID wave. Its performance improved significantly in the second half of 2022. By December, it was running 8 times the number of passenger flights compared to the previous months. As a result, passenger revenue more than tripled to $14.3 billion last year. But waning global demand led to a 15% drop in cargo revenue. Total revenue came in at $51 billion, still less than half of pre-COVID levels in 2019.
For a long period of time, our passenger capacity was below 5% only, so much so that many of our pilots, their license recency has run out, and now we have to retrain them so that they can be back into action.
Cathay was also successful in slashing costs. Staff expenses were down 6.4% year-on-year, owing to a lower headcount. And while fuel costs jumped by 49%, it was already offset by fuel hedging gains of $3.6 billion. As cash flow improves, Cathay will start to redeem $19.5 billion of preference shares from the government to minimize dividend payments.
We will repay the preference shares in full. You know, the exact timing of that repayment, it's impossible for us to say at the moment. You'll recall that the way that the preference share dividend yields are structured, it becomes more expensive over time. And so the longer we leave it, the more expensive it becomes for us. And so, you know,
a separate government loan of $7.8 billion is due in June.
A measured approach.
A woman is fighting for her life in hospital after she and her husband suffered severe burns following a gas explosion in their home in Shau Kei Wan. It's believed that the blast at around 7 a.m. was caused by a leak in their stove. A 58-year-old woman is in critical condition with several burns on her body. Her husband, aged 65, is in serious condition after suffering burns to his face and hand. They were transferred to Queen Mary Hospital after receiving preliminary treatment at Eastern Hospital. Overseas, Israeli troops have killed at least 6 Palestinians and wounded 20 others in the latest raid on the occupied West Bank town of Jenin. The soldiers were searching for a man accused of killing 2 Israelis in the village of Hurara. Helicopters flew over Jenin as troops fired missiles into a building where the wanted man took shelter. Israel said 2 of its soldiers were injured. At nightfall, Palestinians buried those killed in what was the second deadly Israeli assault on a refugee camp in Jenin since January. Britain is getting tough on asylum seekers who arrive on small boats, warning them that they will be detained and deported. The sweeping new laws have been criticized by the United Nations and human rights groups, with some saying they could be illegal. Sachin Cafe reports.
Britain's Conservative government is determined to stop migrants arriving on flimsy boats after a perilous journey across the Channel.
People must know that if they come here illegally, it will result in their detention and swift removal. Once this happens, and they know it will happen, they will not come and the boats will stop.
Under a new bill, the migrants could either be sent back to their country of origin or deported to a third country. Once deported, they will never be allowed to enter Britain again. The government dismissed claims that its action is illegal.
We're not breaking the law, and no government representative has said that we're breaking the law. In fact, we've made it very clear that we believe we're in compliance with all of our international obligations.
The BBC, meanwhile, has come under pressure to sack former England international footballer Gary Lineker, who tweeted that the new legislation is similar to Nazi Germany's policy during the 1930s. Lineker is currently a popular sports presenter with BBC, which said he would be spoken to. Sachin Katwi, HKIBC.
Fears of higher U.S. interest rates and more regulatory oversight of the mainland's financial markets led to the Hang Seng Index tumbling 2.3%. But TVB was immune to the slump, and its shares skyrocketed 85% after the broadcaster joined hands with e-retailer Taobao to live-stream e-commerce events. The downward trend in tech stocks dragged online education provider Koolearn 9.8% lower. Food delivery platform Meituan dropped 4.3% after announcing plans to overhaul its ride-hailing service and cut staff. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day down by 483 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $7.40. The tracker fund was down 48 cents, while Meituan lost $6. China Mobile was down 25 cents, JD.com down $8.10, while Ping An Insurance lost $2.25. The forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro's at 8.27, pound sterling 9.29, while the Australian dollar at 5.18. And finally, in Europe, the London FTSE is currently down 5 points. Finally, a vintage KMB bus, which has a periscope, drives into history tonight after nearly 20 years of service. One veteran driver recalled fond memories of communicating with passengers through the reflective instrument. Joanna Ho reports.
Today was the last chance for bus enthusiasts to ride on Super, the model which holds childhood memories for many Hong Kongers. The Volvo Super Olympian, as it is formally called, is a 10.6-meter-long double-decker, which has 2 rows of seats aligned opposite each other and a periscope. It has served the city since 2001, but was gradually removed from service starting in 2019. This vehicle is the last in the fleet. Have you ever tried taking a sneak peek at a driver through a periscope on the bus back in the day? If you did, you and I shared the same experience, but from tomorrow it will become just a memory. The periscopes allowed drivers to check the safety of passengers on the upper deck. But the range of the instruments was limited, as they couldn't capture every corner of the upper deck. Their usage can be traced back to the 1970s, before KMB began equipping its new buses with CCTVs starting at the turn of the century. Lee Kam-fai, KMB Academy's chief instructor, said the instrument had given him a lot of good memories.
我停車嗰陣時咧，試過我高頭啦，喺前望嗰度咧，會見到啲小朋友同我打招呼咯嚇。
The veteran driver recalled moments when he and some children greeted each other through the periscope. The model drives into history tonight with the last bus on Route 11D leaving Lok Fu for the Kwun Tong Ferry Pier. The bus operator plans to keep the bus, which may be rolled out for some future occasions. 2 other buses of the same type have been donated to schools for educational purposes. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
And finally, the weather. Tomorrow will start off cloudy, becoming fine later, although visibility will remain low. Temperatures will range between 19 and 27 degrees. Similar conditions in the coming days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good night.